In the heart of the city, where skyscrapers pierced the clouds, lived Arthur Pendleton. His name was a whisper of legend in the financial world, a synonym for success. He had everything a man could desire. A penthouse that offered a god's-eye view of the world, a garage full of cars that were more art than machine, and a bank account that could fund a small nation. Yet, for all his wealth, an unshakable emptiness haunted him. His vast home echoed with silence, a constant, painful reminder of what he had lost 20 years ago. His son, Leo, just a child of 5, with bright, curious eyes, and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. They had been at a bustling city fair, a rare day off for Arthur. One moment, Leo's small hand was in his. The next, he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. A frantic search, police reports, private investigators had all led to nothing. His wife, Alara, withered under the grief, and their marriage crumbled like sand through their fingers. Now, Arthur was alone, surrounded by gilded memories and the ghost of a child's laughter. Every year, on Leo's birthday, Arthur would host a lavish charity gala. It was a spectacle of philanthropy, a way to channel his pain into something good. But this year, the 25th birthday of his lost son, felt different. A storm raged outside, mirroring the tempest in his soul. He stood by the panoramic window, watching the rain lash against the glass, the city lights blurring into a watercolor of sorrow. The gala felt hollow, a charade of generosity. He needed to do something more, something real. He canceled the gala, shocking his staff and the city's elite. Instead, he instructed his personal chef, a world-renowned culinary artist, to prepare an extravagant feast not for the rich and famous, but for the city's forgotten. He opened the doors of his foundation's community center, a place usually reserved for board meetings and donor receptions, and turned it into a sanctuary for the homeless. He wanted to feed those who were truly hungry, to offer a moment of warmth and dignity to those battling the storm, both outside and within. That Ibn Arthur wasn't the billionaire tycoon. He was just a man in a simple apron, serving plates of gourmet food alongside his staff. He saw the weariness in the eyes of his guests, but also a flicker of gratitude that warmed him more than any business deal ever had. He moved through the tables, refilling drinks, sharing quiet words, and for the first time in a long time, the silence in his heart began to recede. Then, a young man stumbled in, drenched and shivering, looking no older than his mid. He was rail-thin, with clothes that were little more than rags. His hair was matted with rain, and a deep hunger was etched into his gaunt features. But it was his eyes that caught Arthur's attention. They were a startling, familiar shade of hazel, filled with a cautious curiosity that seemed out of place amidst his weary demeanor. The young man hesitated at the door, as if he couldn't believe a place so grand would welcome someone like him. Arthur approached him gently. "Welcome," he said, his voice softer than he intended. "There's plenty of food. Please, come in and get warm." The young man looked at him, a flicker of surprise in his eyes, and gave a small, grateful nod. Arthur led him to a table and brought him a heaping plate of food. He watched as the young man, whose name he learned was Alex, ate with a desperation that twisted Arthur's heart. He didn't just eat, he devoured the food, as if it were his first real meal in weeks. Arthur found himself drawn to Alex. He sat down across from him. "Where are you from, Alex?" he asked, trying to keep his tone casual. Alex rugged, not looking up from his plate. "Nowhere, really. Everywhere, I guess. I've been on my own for as long as I can remember." His voice was raspy, unused to conversation. He spoke of a life spent in and out of orphanages, of running away at 16 to escape the harshness, of living on the streets, surviving day by day on his wits and the occasional kindness of strangers. He spoke without self-pity, stating the facts of his life as if he were reciting a grocery list. Arthur listened, a strange feeling churning in his gut. There was a resilience in Alex, a quiet dignity that defied his circumstances. "Do you remember your parents?" Arthur asked, the question escaping his lips before he could stop it. Alex paused, his fur covering midair. He finally looked up, and his hazel eyes met Arthur's. "No. The orphanage said I was found wandering near a city fair. I had a little wooden bird in my pocket. That's all." A wooden bird. The world around Arthur seemed to slow down. the clatter of cutlery and the hum of conversation fading into a distant buzz. His breath caught in his throat. He remembered that bird. He had carved it himself, a clumsy, amateurish little thing, for Leo's 5th birthday, just days before he disappeared. He had painted it blue, Leo's favorite color. He had always been terrible at carving, and the bird was lopsided, its wings uneven. It was a unique, imperfect creation. This bird, Arthur said, his voice trembling. What did it look like? Alex seemed taken aback by the intensity in Arthur's voice. He reached into the tattered pocket of his jacket and pulled out a small, worn object wrapped in a piece of cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, as if it were a precious jewel. It was a small wooden bird, its blue paint faded and chipped. One of its wings was slightly shorter than the other. It was lopsided. It was imperfect. It was his. Arthur stared at the bird, and 20 years of grief, guilt, and buried hope crashed over him in a single, overwhelming wave. He looked from the bird to Alex's face. Now he could see it. The shape of his eyes, the curve of his smile, faint as it was Alara's smile. The stubborn set of his jaw, it was his own. How had he not seen it before? The boy he had lost, the reason for the cavernous hole in his life, was sitting right in front of him, a stranger he had invited in from the rain. Leah. The name was a whisper, a prayer. Alex looked up, confused. My name is Alex. No, Arthur said, tears streaming down his face, the first he had shed in years. Your name is Leo. I am your father. The declaration hung in the air between them, thick with disbelief and the weight of 2 decades. Alex stared at him, his expression a mixture of shock, suspicion, and a dawning, fragile hope. He looked at the powerful, wealthy man crying before him, then back at the little wooden bird in his hand. He had always wondered about the bird. It was the one tangible link to a past he couldn't remember, a symbol of a love he felt but couldn't place. He had clung to it through cold nights and hungry days, his only possession. Could it be true? Could this man, this billionaire, who lived in a world so far removed from his own, be easy? In the days that followed, the story pieced itself together. A DNA test confirmed what Arthur's heart already knew. Leo Alex had been found by a social worker wandering, disoriented and unable to say more than his first name, which they had misheard. He was placed in the foster care system, lost in a bureaucratic shuffle that Arthur's wealth and power had somehow never managed to penetrate. The reunion was not a fairy tale ending, but a new, complicated beginning. Leo had to navigate a world of unimaginable luxury, a stark contrast to the survival mode he had known his entire life. He was wary, accustomed to betrayal and disappointment. Arthur, in turn, had to learn patience. He couldn't buy back the lost years or erase the trauma his son had endured. He had to earn his son's trust, not with money, but with time, understanding, and unconditional love. They started small. They took walks in the park, not talking much at first, just getting used to each other's presence. Arthur learned about the hardships Leo had faced, the quiet strength he had developed. Leo began to see beyond the billionaire and glimpse the grieving father who had never stopped searching for him. He slowly started to reclaim his name, Leo, letting go of the identity of Alex, the survivor. Arthur also reconnected with Alara. He called her, his voice shaking, and told her the impossible news. She flew back immediately, and when she saw Leo, she collapsed into his arms, weeping with a joy so profound it was painful to watch. Seeing his parents together, united in their love for him, was a powerful healing force for Leo. The fractured family began to mend, piece by fragile piece. Arthur Pendleton was still a billionaire. He still lived in a penthouse overlooking the city, but the silence was gone. It was replaced by conversation, by arguments over what to watch on TV. B2 simply. Beautiful noise of a family rediscovering each other. The emptiness in his heart was filled, not by his fortune, but by the return of his greatest treasure. He had opened his doors to a hungry stranger on a stormy night, and in doing so, he had found his way home. His lost son was back, and for the first time in 20 years, Arthur Pendleton was truly rich. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content that touches the heart. See you next time.